Well, he's a 16-year-old lad who was in a group of youths in Stubberley Park in Bacup on that fateful August night. Now, the court's already been told that Sophie and Rob were attacked basically because of the way they chose to dress. They were what's known as goths. Now, this youth said that when the group first came across Sophie and Rob, things were quite amiable. In fact, Rob shared his cigarettes with the group and they posed for photographs. However, the mood then started to change. He said one of the group suggested beating them up. Now, he said, don't do that. They've done nothing wrong. However, he insists that the defendant in this case, a 15-year-old youth, punched Rob in the face. Others then joined in punching and kicking him. Now, basically, he fell to the floor. When he got up, somebody said, "Do you want an ambulance?" When he said no, the punching and kicking resumed. The witness insists that the defendant in this case also kicked Sophie in the back.
So what did he do then?
Well, he says a girl who was with him had become very distressed and crying, so he led her away from the scene. She called an ambulance, and indeed the court was told that in a recording of the 999 call, this witness can be heard in the background shouting at the group to stop the attack. Now, he says when they returned to the scene, the group were walking away. Sophie and Rob were lying on the floor, battered and bleeding.
And was he able to give them any help?
Yes, he said that he took off his T-shirt and the girl took off her T-shirt and they tried to use those to stem the bleeding on Sophie and Rob. He said he also moved Sophie's head so that she could breathe more easily. Sadly, she died in hospital a few days later. He also tried to help Rob by moving his head. The youth who's on trial here denies murdering Sophie. The trial continues tomorrow.
Well, our chief reporter Dave Guest has been following today's evidence at Preston Crown Court from where he joins us now. What involvement did the boy say he had in those events on August the 11th last year, Dave?
Well, the 15-year-old admits that he was in Stubberley Park on that fateful August night when Sophie Lancaster was kicked and punched to death. He admits punching Sophie's boyfriend, Rob Maltby, in the face once, but says he never laid so much as a finger on Sophie. He says it was a 16-year-old who attacked Sophie and killed her. Now, that 16-year-old has already admitted Sophie's murder, but the prosecutors here at Preston say this was a joint enterprise between the 16-year-old and the 15-year-old who's currently on trial. He, of course, denies the charge of murder that's laid against him.
Did the 15-year-old explain why he hit Robert Maltby?
He said today there was no justification or explanation for what he did. He said he'd been drinking heavily on the night. He'd had 2 litres of cider before he even arrived in the park that night. And he says when he was there with other youths, he'd been drinking lager and also peach schnapps. Now, he remembered somebody saying hit him, meaning Robert Maltby, and so he did. He says Robert laughed after being punched and then others joined the attack. He said at that point he withdrew and he saw the 16-year-old kicking Sophie as she was on the floor trying to protect her injured boyfriend. Now, earlier the court was told that no traces of Sophie's blood were found on this 15-year-old's shoes or clothing.
And the court's already been told, haven't they, that this pair were attacked purely because of the way they looked?
Yes, they're dressed in what's known as the goth style. Now, when they arrived in the park, that made them the subject of some interest. Apparently, earlier in the evening, some girls had been taking photographs of them. Rob had actually been sharing his cigarettes with some of the youths, but then the mood changed and the couple were attacked. The prosecution described the attack by youths as being like a pack of wild animals. Sophie died from her injuries sometime later. Rob has never fully recovered from his. Now, the 15-year-old on trial here has admitted grievous bodily harm against Rob, but as I say, he denies Sophie's murder, and this case continues tomorrow.
Dave Guest, many thanks.
An unusual appearance, coupled with a warm friendliness. This is what led to Sophie Lancaster and Rob Maltby being savagely and mercilessly beaten by some teenagers they met in a park.
It was after midnight in this skate park and some of the teenagers had been drinking heavily, although the mood seemed pretty good-natured, until one of them suddenly suggested that they batter Rob Maltby. So 5 of them kicked and punched him to the ground, and then they jumped and they stamped upon his head. Sophie knelt down and cradled him in her lap and told them to stop, but they didn't stop. Instead, 2 of them did the same to her.
A 14-year-old girl saw Sophie and Rob injured on the ground and dialed 999. Her voice has been disguised to protect her identity.
If you can check whether they're breathing.
Are they breathing? Are they breathing? Please tell me if they're breathing enough.
Just about, he said, just about. They're making noises like they can't breathe.
Did you see what happened?
No, we see what happened, but they must have been battered because there's blood all over the face.
Okay, I want to know.
Sophie's family and Rob released these disturbing images to show how badly they were injured. Sophie never regained consciousness.
I just really wish she just legged it, just got out of there and wait until he'd left and come back. But I wish she'd left me to die, if I'm to be honest.
Ryan Herbert pleaded guilty to Sophie's murder at the beginning of the court trial. This is him singing in a rap video as part of a youth project. He was 15 at the time of the attack. Today, his friend Brendan Harris, who was 15 as well, was also found guilty by the jury. After the verdict, police criticised his mother.
She was laughing during virtually all the proceedings of the arrest for murder, didn't take it seriously, and that obviously reflected in the behaviour of her son, whose just conduct is just ignorant and arrogant and cowardly.
At Sophie's funeral, a goodbye kiss from her boyfriend Rob. She died trying to shield him from the blows.
All you can do is hope that as time goes on it does get easier. But I'm beginning to think that that's not true. I think as time goes on it seems to get harder.
Like their friends, Sophie and Rob dressed in the goth style. Police say that's the only reason they were attacked. Sophie's mum described her as an intelligent girl, courageous and adorable, and she was killed simply because of the way she looked. Nick Ravenscroft, BBC News, Preston Crown Court.
Each time you get hurt, I don't want you to change, 'cause everyone has hopes, you're human after all. The feeling sometimes wishing you were someone else, feeling as though you never belong. This feeling is not sadness, this feeling is not joy. I truly understand. Please don't cry now.